Throughout all history, the living Church of Jesus Christ has been answering the challenges of its times. It has been the salt and the light, the bread and the water. Towards the end of 2013, Ukraine entered the period of its highest geopolitical turbulence. Regardless of your opinion on the Maidan revolution, one thing is clear. When tens of thousands of people knelt down to pray and repent, when blood was shed and the hope for dignity arose in spite of the memory of the slavery, the Church rose to the challenge and stood up. It offered tea and bread to the hungry, aided the wounded, and shared warmth when it was cold. Then came the invasion of Crimea, resulting in the first refugees and daily prayers in churches and city squares. Next, Slavyansk was occupied, and confusion and mass evacuation resulted, followed by the arranging of camps for refugees and day and night hotlines. The Church again rose to the challenge. It offered a solution.
To meet people where they are hurting, to relieve their suffering, to feed the hungry. This is the same spirit of the gospel, which has been our foundation for the last 15 years, as we have served orphans. It feels as though God had been preparing us for these times long in advance. The Church has always been socially active. When these times came, we realized that our responsibility was to reach far beyond the church building. The TV ministry played an important role. Our friends from all over the world joined us in our efforts. Basically, the church became the only answer to the needs of the locals in the occupied town.
Evangelical Christians were regarded as ideological enemies at that time. In May, Bishop Alexei Demidovich was arrested. Thankfully, he was miraculously able to escape from captivity. On June 8, on the Day of Trinity, 4 church ministers were kidnapped right from a service at Transformation Church of Slavyansk. They were brutally tortured and murdered early in the morning of the next day. Their bodies were burned in the outskirts of town. Later, the torturers and murderers said we wanted to demoralize all believers. An informational war affected hundreds of thousands of people. The front line went beyond geographical and national borders. It came right to the doors of some families. The Church rose to this challenge too, by speaking truth and doing good even to those who considered them enemies. Rescue those being led away to death. This proverb has become the slogan of the Church. All denomination differences have been demolished. The troubles have united all Christians, and they stand like a united army, serving people in this vital time in history. Svetogorsk hosts the first large camp for internally displaced people. Thousands of lives are being saved. The churches are mobilizing their resources, gathering food, clothing and medicine, and raising money. Camps like this appear throughout Ukraine. Christians are opening the doors of their homes to thousands of traumatized people. July 5 of 2014 was the day when the Lord miraculously saved Slavyansk. Ukrainian soldiers took out 3 trucks of weapons from the building of the Good News Church, previously occupied by separatists. The church has become a headquarters for saving people. CBN Emmanuel was one of the first organizations that came to the town. They found the ruins of destroyed homes, projectiles sticking out in asphalt, broken windows, stray dogs, closed shops, and an absence of city authorities. The people who had stayed in town were afraid to go out of their homes. They could still hear the sounds of shooting and explosions at night. Questions rang in the air. What should we do? Should we stay? Should we rebuild everything? Or will they come back again?
We came to visit several families with young kids whose homes were destroyed. We decided to start rebuilding their homes because winter was coming.
The evangelical church appeared to be almost the only part of society which gained the trust of people with various political views. We received a chance to show the real face of our God to people living in fear, disillusion and grief. We acted as the hands and feet of Christ.
humanitarian caravans started coming into Slavyansk from all over the Ukraine. Christians from western and central Ukraine brought food and construction materials. Volunteers came to help rebuild homes. Russian-speaking ministries and American and European churches gathered loads of clothes, food and monetary aid. In times of tragedy, heroes are born. Gennady Lysenko, Alexander Reshetnik and Pavel Abramchuk stayed in the occupied town until the end. They helped refugees leave the town, sometimes even carrying them in their arms. They brought people water and food. All these three men were arrested and only escaped death by a miracle. Pyotr Dudnik, pastor of the Good News Church, Galina Kucher, director of social projects for CBN Emmanuel, and Alexei Fedchenko, coordinator of the Save Ukraine, each directed multi-level activities of evangelical Christian volunteers from various denominations and countries. They coordinated outreach to refugees, the reconstruction of houses, distribution of humanitarian aid and other missionary activities. Thousands of tons of food, medical supplies and construction materials are being received into Ukraine through the efforts of Vladimir Brichka, Bishop of the Pentecostal Union of Zhytomyr region, Ivan Shtukert of Nehemiah Mission and Sergei Rakhuba, Director of Mission Eurasia. Thanks to Ivan Velkhovoy, Gennady Pukasenko, Alex Fedoruk, Anatoly Kolomiets, and many other partners, dozens of loads of humanitarian aid are coming to Ukraine. There are hundreds of other heroes who have made the spreading of the gospel and the salvation of souls their primary focus.